Hey everybody, I'm Amit Matani, CEO of Wellfound. I'm excited to be joined today by Charles Lee, the co-CEO and co-founder of Kovo Credit. Thanks for joining us, Charles.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited to chat today, Amit.
Tell me a little bit about what Kovo does.
Yeah, so we are a credit builder, and essentially we are a way for people to be able to demonstrate that they are able to make small monthly payments that are then reported to the major credit bureaus. And the way that it works is we sell digital content such as ID monitoring and courses, and we offer financing to it. So the financing is $10 a month for 24 months. And as I just mentioned, those are reported to all the major credit bureaus. It's really a way for people to on-ramp into the credit system, or if they've been a part of the system before, to act as a way to onboard back into the credit system if they've been locked out for one reason or another.
So who are the primary customers? Like who you bring this product to?
Yeah, so we have quite a few different customer personas. One is, as you might suspect, people who are thin file or no file. One thing that we've discovered is, there are a lot of people, especially millennials and Gen Z, who have seen the older generations kind of get burned by your traditional forms of credit, such as credit cards. They don't like the incentivized spend that comes with them, all of the emotional baggage. They've seen loved ones struggle with credit card debt. But in order to advance in their financial progression, they need to have a credit score and, need to start building that early on. So for us, people who are new to the system, that's something that's a customer profile that is really important to us. We also have a lot of folks that have been burned in the past. For example, there's a lack of financial education in the US. I could go on about that. It's something that really should be taught in schools, but it's not. So a lot of folks, when they get, for example, their first cards or other forms of credit, they may think it's free money, not know the importance of having to pay it back. They end up, shooting themselves in the foot, and then they're locked out of the system. And that's where we come in. Serve as a way for them to on-ramp back into the credit system. For a lot of these folks, it's several years down the line, they're reformed borrowers, and they really need a way to prove that, hey, I've learned from my mistakes, and I am now a much more responsible borrower.
That makes sense. So tell me a little bit about the founding story. What was the defining moment that you were like, okay, this is the business that we're going to build?
Yeah, so my co-founder Nimit and I, we took a very consumer-centric approach to building the company. And, we were just really following a lot of instincts that we had from our previous roles. So in a past life, I was the second hire and head architect at Plaid. And during my time there, I just really saw the entire fintech ecosystem develop, but also realized that there are a lot of sub-industries which are just perennially underinvested in. And one of those is access to credit. So my co-founder, Nimit, he brings a great wealth of consumer experience. He was the youngest product director at Yahoo, reporting directly to Marissa Mayer during the turnaround period. The two of us, we started this company a few years ago, and how we came across this particular idea of building credit is we got certified as consumer credit counselors. We talked with hundreds of people. We went to multiple college campuses to interview students. We interviewed people off of Craigslist. We camped out in front of payday loan shops for several days. A lot of lessons from that. And one thing that kept on coming up was, access credit is important, but more fundamentally, I want a way to be able to build credit in a safe and responsible way. And, that's a premium service that I'm willing to sign up for. And from there, we started looking at, hey, what's being done right now? Like, what are all the current incarnations of credit building, and how can we improve upon those?
That makes sense. So talk to me a little bit about kind of what your vision for the company is. What's the bull case? Everything works. How do you see it impacting the world? How big do you see it getting?
Yeah, so the long-term vision for Kovo is to be a one-stop shop for access to financial services and products. So let's say you're a Kovo customer. It's a few years down the road. If you want some new financial product or service, you would either come to us directly because we're offering it, or through one of our partners. So that's long-term vision. And we're starting today with credit building as our wedge into that, because it's a very urgent hair on fire problem for our customers. And it also, as I stated earlier, we're capturing our users very early on in their financial life cycle. So when they're just starting out or when they're just re-entering the system, And the goal is to really grow hand in hand and continually offer more and more services to our customers as they progress through their financial life cycle. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, people are coming to us not because they want a credit score, like just to have a high credit score. Like they want to be able to refinance their existing loans. They want to buy a car and ultimately buy a house. And to need that, you need to have been an active participant in the system for many years.
So I saw you guys are a public benefit corporation. What was the reasoning behind making it a public benefit corporation? How does that impact kind of day-to-day operation of the company?
Yeah, so this was something where Nimin and I both felt very strongly that, especially in the consumer fintech space, it was important to have safeguards and protective measures such that in the future, there are a lot of stories around companies that have been taken over by activist investors that then, really prioritize short-term profits over long-term customer well-being. And something that I saw in particular during my time at Plaid, especially in the twins, was that a lot of consumer fintech companies, they were at best providing a band-aid over whatever issue a customer was facing, and at worst, just straight up predatory. So that was something we really wanted to protect ourselves against. And for us, our public benefit mission is extremely important, and it really serves as a guiding like North Star into everything that we're doing. And it also allows us the flexibility such that we're not always like, short-term profit driven, and we're able to really think more holistically about how does this play into a customer's entire financial profile and well-being.
Does that affect kind of how you guys raise money or anything else? Does that have any practical effects in just day-to-day operation?
Day-to-day, not so much. Definitely in how it's distilled down from, this is a North Star, guiding measure for us. But in terms of like fundraising day-to-day operations, it didn't really have an impact. I think you've probably seen an increasing number of especially consumer fintechs that are public benefit companies as well.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of paint me a picture of where the organization is right now. Like, how much funding do you guys have? Like, how many people work there? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we raised a seed round in 2021. We have been very fortunate to have been able to grow significantly. So in the past 2 years, we've maxed our customer base in revenue. And essentially for us, our team size is super lean. We're 12 people looking to still keep it like pretty lean, looking to hire engineers, which is why we've been happily engaged with Wellfound. And we're planning on hiring a few more engineers, and we have a lot on the roadmap. There's a lot of exciting stuff for us to build. There are a few other roles that will come up in 2025 for us that we're still kind of fleshing out exactly what we want. But the goal is to really keep things lean. We believe we can, there's another 10xing while keeping the team like from scaling linearly with that.
What about in terms of, are you guys on site? How do you guys work? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we are fully remote. This has honestly allowed us to hire better talent than we would have been able to if we had stayed in San Francisco, which is where my co-founder and I were based for many years before this company. And it's been wonderful. So we have offsites every few months. We just had one in LA last week. It was incredibly fun. We did pick a different city every time to keep things interesting. And just day to day, because we're such a small team, we try to keep things super lean. We run a 2-week sprint cycle, but it's not any like formal agile or scrum process. And we try to keep scheduled meetings to a minimum. So every Monday we have engine support stand up. So the Eng team works very closely with support. It's very easy to collaborate given how small a company we are. Engineers are in charge of project management as well. We don't have any dedicated PMs. We're really looking for folks who are able to take a feature from essentially design all the way through to, and getting it into the end user's hands. And aside from that, we use a lot of tooling for communication like Slack, as well as Zoom and Tuple for video calls and screen sharing.
Talk to me a little bit about that decision of not wanting to use product managers. Was that a conscious decision? Did that come from, where did that come from? And how does that play out day to day?
Yeah, so my co-founder and I were the de facto PMs. As I mentioned before, we had done a significant amount of customer research before. From that initial customer research, as well as obviously the ongoing feedback that we receive from our existing customers. Our roadmap in terms of what we want to build is pretty clear in the short to medium term. And right now, it's just a matter of executing efficiently against that roadmap. At
Makes
some
sense.
point down the line, we will likely need PMs. It's just not in the near
Not in
future.
your
Yeah.
today. Yeah, makes sense. Talk to me a little bit about the traction. You said you guys have had a lot of great growth. Like, what does that look like right now that you're willing to share?
Yeah, so it's been really good. As I mentioned, yeah, we've 10x volume in the past 2 years, still growing at an incredible pace. And for us, our goals right now are to really continue focusing on the credit building aspect. We've barely scratched the surface. We know that there's a lot of depth to this market. And how that translates on a day-to-day basis is we're shifting from a startup built with like a lot of duct tape and super glue into like all these manual or semi-manual processes to more automation. Vast majority of our processes now are automated to some extent. The goal and priority over the next 6 months is to really fully automate as much as we can so that once we scale another X, a lot of that will, just no longer need to be manual or semi-manual and just be completely automated.
So is that kind of the big projects or the ones that you're most excited about? Basically, year of automation, getting those things kind of tightened up to scale? Or tell me a little bit about like what the next 12 months look like in terms of major projects that you're willing to share.
Yeah, so a lot of it is kind of shoring up our infrastructure. We're calling it a stability initiative. That's what the Eng team is focused on for the next 3 to 6 months. But in parallel, we're also building out a lot of new features. So one example, we have a mobile app that was just released a few months ago. Right now, it's pretty much just like a glorified web view, like essentially a wrapper around our website. The goal there is to continually add more native mobile features and really improve the customer experience and essentially the entire UX. Like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we know
Yeah.
can be addressed that we've been punting for a while. Like we, for example, even have designs that aren't implemented right now, and hence the need to hire more people at this point.
Makes sense. So, you talk to engineers, designers, join their company. What's the pitch? Why is Kovo a great place to work?
Yeah, so the people we're looking for, and honestly, I think this is probably true for most early stage startups, is if you're looking for a place to have outsized impact, to be able to really drive forward a lot of development and implementation, and just wear a lot of hats, have a lot of responsibility, this is definitely the place where you can achieve that. And, we don't micromanage here. If you're getting your work done, great. We're fully remote. A lot of engineers, I think, find that particularly appealing. I remember reading a study that like 40% of engineers would never work in an office again, and we're really trying to take advantage of that. And beyond that, really working here day to day, it's extremely enjoyable. I love everyone on our team. Everyone's super collaborative, willing to help out. That's something that we actually really look for in our interviewing process is how well can you collaborate cross-functionally. We're such a small team that you're going to be interacting with people, both eng and non-eng day to day. So that's extremely important for us.
Talk to me a little bit about your culture. You guys are about 12 people. One of the ways that I've heard culture defined, especially at smaller companies, it's the behaviors that you reward and the behaviors that you punish. And also for smaller companies, I've also seen that a lot of culture comes from the founders themselves, like what they're like, what they care about. So tell me a little bit about you guys, your cultures, these behaviors.
Yeah, definitely collaboration and willingness to jump in and help out on any issue is a quality that we look for. So that's something that, if someone has a question, something's not clear, like for example, then we want people to be able to help out as much as possible. On top of that, it's about fostering an environment of mentorship. So for example, I'm talking mainly about the Eng team because I manage the Eng team day to day. So on the Eng team, we have people of varying experience levels. We have someone who graduated college a year ago. We have people with over a decade of industry experience. It's about creating that environment where people feel like they are able to receive the mentorship that they need it to be able to be guided and grow, as well as for people with more experience being able to feel like they're able to have an impact on helping like the more junior engineers grow and develop and be able to set the trajectory of the engineering culture as well.
What about when thinking about selecting talent? What is maybe the most important thing that you're looking for specifically for engineers when you're trying to hire?
Yeah, for engineers, it's a few different criteria. It's probably hard to name the most important one, but the top few criteria that we look for: people who like live and breathe startups. It's okay if you worked at a big company before and then realized that wasn't for you, worked at some startups. But for us, it's hard to describe to someone who's only worked at a large company. So when I started my career as a PM at Microsoft once upon a time, and I quickly realized that was not for me. So if that resonates with you, definitely working at a smaller company is the right move. And for us, on top of that, we're looking for people who fit, especially on the Eng side, like a more traditional CS background, who have familiarity with our tech stack. So we're TypeScript on both front end and back, and we use React and Node. Some familiarity with AWS is preferred, not required. And just generally having self-initiative and willingness to learn are important factors as well.
Why? Like, what about all these things kind of are you guys looking for? How does that make you guys work better, work faster, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, day to day, there are a lot of problems that come up that don't have a well-defined solution. And it's something that we need to be able to solve through a combination of creativity and experience and research in the moment. So all of those qualities that I mentioned, I think really help contribute to an environment where we're able to problem solve effectively and also be able to just ship code effectively.
Tell me a little bit about the team overall. So you mentioned you and your co-founder have had long careers. What about the rest of the team? What have they been up to before joining Kovo?
Yeah, so I'll start with the overall team composition. So I manage the Eng team. I don't code day to day anymore, unfortunately. I would like to, just don't have the time. And then we have 6 engineers, 2 people who are primarily front end. The other 4 are primarily back end. But as I like to frame it, we're looking for people who are just generally dangerous all over the stack. No one's like super pigeonholed. There's a lot of work to be done everywhere. My co-founder Nimit, he manages the non-Eng side of things. We have 3 customer success agents, and they not only handle like support inquiries, but they have a lot of other responsibilities as well. So for example, Cody, he manages our ad spend and does a lot of the creatives for ads. Ali does a lot of the support tooling as well. On the growth side, Key heads up BD, him on BD. He's actually a pretty unicorn hire. So he was actually our first hire. He has over 2 decades of experience at 3 of the 4 credit bureaus. It's been incredible working with him and learning a lot from his industry knowledge, like day to day.
Awesome. So are there ways that people can stand out for you in the interview process or even before that when they're applying?
Yeah, I think doing a little bit of research beforehand on the company really shows a lot of initiative and intelligence. There are a lot of candidates, surprising number I've interviewed, where they haven't looked at the website even, for example. So that's a pretty low bar, but I think it's important to show that you've done the initial research. And for someone to truly stand out, it would mean that you ask some pretty pointed questions about the industry, such as, I see XYZ are potential like primary competitors to you. Like, how are you differentiated? Asking questions about our customer base. There are a lot of more nuanced questions that shows just a deeper level of understanding as well.
That makes sense. When you think about your interview process and kind of finding those qualities that you are looking for, how do you guys do that? How is your interview process structured?
Yeah, for Eng, which is the only set of roles we're actively hiring for, so that has like the most well-defined pipeline. It is just the initial chat, 30 minutes with me, just a standard set of questions. I'll go through and talk about the company background, myself, like what we're looking for, all of that. And then we have 3 technical rounds. So it's a pretty straightforward process. We've gotten feedback from candidates that it's very in line with with industry. And so the first round is a 60-minute coding session. It varies depending on if you're primarily back end or front end. But unlike a lot of coding sessions, it's not like lead code style. So we have people share their screen. We let them use Google and Stack Overflow to their heart's content. It's really meant to mimic their day-to-day working environment, because that ultimately is going to be most representative of the kind of output that they'll have. The second round is a 60-minute architecture session, and the first half of that is a PM style interview. So we'll talk about building a particular type of web app, identify its user base, what types of features we want to build out for those user personas. The second half of that is like a more back-end style systems design question. And the final round is a take-home, and that is just we give a short one-page spec that lists out exactly the criteria by which we're grading, and we give the candidate a week to do it, but we cap the amount of time to 4 hours. I've heard horror stories of companies that are like, oh, that we spent 3 days on this.
Thanks, Charles, for your time. This was super interesting, learning a little bit more about Kovo. If people want to learn more about Kovo Credit, where should they go?
Yeah, definitely check out our website, just kovocredit.com. Look at this independent wallet hub review that ranks us as the #1 credit builder in the space, and look at our customer reviews. We're 4.9 stars on Trustpilot, and our customers love us. And if this sounds interesting to you, yeah, please apply.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Charles.
Awesome. Thank you, Amit.